first introduce me and Elle, and then everyone will applaud. So I'll just go back to that and say, ladies and gentlemen, Nick Refn and Elle Fanning. Okay. So I'm just going to refer to my notes here because I don't want to miss anything that Nick wanted me to ask, but I'd like to ask a few questions of my own, if that's okay. And I also, this is not an audience Q&A, but I think that's wrong. So if you want to tweet me some questions, I'll try and answer a few, okay? So tweet me. Okay. It's me. It's just me. Ronnie Brosling. Okay. I'm gonna say, okay, Elle, I loved your performance in the film. Okay, so here's my first question, and it goes to kind of what you were saying at first when you emailed me, which is, I think once and for all, let's just get down to brass tacks. Are you or are you not a genius?
My mother said ever since I was born I was a genius.
But are you?
Yes.
What is that like?
Torture.
Is everything better when you're a genius or worse? Like, do you experience everything on a higher level, or is everything like slightly a disappointment?
It depends if I look in the mirror.
Okay. When did you know you were a genius? Was there like an aha moment where you thought, was there that moment?
I think when we kissed, it really solidified it.
Okay. Elle, I think a strong case can be made that you too are a genius. But you don't feel the need to go around telling everybody about it. Why is that?
Well, I'm very excited today, really, because I graduated high school last night. So I just keep thinking about that over and over. So to me, I don't feel like a genius at all, because all my friends were like, now I guess we're adults, but we're not really sure. We're in this limbo right now where it's scary because you don't know what you are.
I think it's safe to say that you're a genius. I read a little something that, Nick, you were saying that you feel like every man has a 16-year-old girl inside of him. Is that true?
Yes.
Do you really think, I'm not sure that that's true. Do you really believe that?
No, I really do. I think that every man has a 16-year-old girl inside of him. And it really came out in our car ride.
So are you saying there's a 16-year-old girl inside you right now?
Yes, and she looks like that.
Okay.
And am I not lucky?
Can I talk to the 16-year-old girl inside of you right now?
Yes.
Okay. Here's the thing. So when Nick and I first, I'm trying to think if we should go to when we first met, or, well, here's the thing. When Nick and I had an experience where I was driving him home, and REO Speedwagon came on the radio, and he started crying and singing it at the top of his lungs. And then he said to me, this is what the movie's about. This is before we did Drive. He said it's about a guy who drives around LA listening to 80s pop music and that's about it. Now I think it's important to note that not only is that not what Drive is about, but there's not even one scene where that happens. But for whatever reason, that was like the touchstone for us. We told that story millions of times, and we would refer to it while we were working as like the tonal touchstone of the movie. So did you guys have something like that? Was there an experience or a moment where you both said this is what the film's about, and it's what you sort of kept referring to or using?
I think that our theme song for this was Let It Go, Frozen, Let It Go. Because when I walked into Nick's house because it's funny because I heard that Nick was gonna do this movie, like a fashion film with a teenage girl as the lead, and that was very shocking to me because he's, you know, king of like masculinity and violence and blood and whatever. And so when I heard that, then he invited, and I was like, oh, this is so different. I didn't know the script or I didn't read it or anything. And then he invited me over to his house in LA, and I walk in and there's just like princess clothes everywhere, Barbies everywhere, and I'm like, what's going on? And then like Frozen, Let It Go is playing, and then his two little girls run out, and so I realized that he's just surrounded by all feminine things in his entire house, and he said that Let It Go is his favorite song, so we would sing it often.
Did the 16-year-old girl inside of Nick ever borrow your clothes? And if so, did he return them? You don't have to answer that. When Nick and I that's when you first met?
Yeah, that was when we first met.
But was that the tonal reference, or did you guys have, what was it that sort of was the thing that you guys kept coming back to in terms of what the film is?
I think that it was always, we wanted to make a horror film about beauty.
Okay.
And a film that celebrated narcissism as a quality.
So have you invited me here to ask questions that you're not really going to answer?
But I think that what we kind of always went back to was this idea of who is the neon demon. And I had this triangle symbol that we would always talk about. What could it mean and who was the neon demon in the film? We listened to a lot of Giorgio Moroder when we made the movie. And but I think that, I was like, I always fantasized about being a 16-year-old girl, and when I saw Elle, I was like, wow. And that's, in a way, a really interesting feeling.
Now, how do you feel about this theory that there's a 16-year-old girl in every grown man?
Well, I think when we first met, we did talk about this, and I think that I'd never worked so closely with someone before. We really it felt like very much like a team. I never had that much freedom to try things as much, because I don't know if you felt like that, but because we filmed in sequence, we were constantly just changing things all the time. And I would, in the mornings, he'd be like, what do you want to do? And that just, I don't know, I felt like I had, there was this weird power that came with it, because it was all instinctual and very spontaneous. And halfway through filming, Nick came and was like, I don't like the way our movie ends, and he threw it away. And so we had to find a new ending, and we completely redid it. So it was just, it was constantly spontaneous.
You shot this chronologically as well?
Yes.
How much did it change from the original?
A lot. It had to do with the Necrophilia Scene.
So I guess let's talk about that. All right.
So the Necrophilia Scene was shot here, and
are you cheering for necrophilia, or that it was shot here? don't answer that.
And it was the only sequence that I couldn't do out of order because it was too expensive for me to shoot it later on because I wanted to shoot in a real morgue. And Jenna Malone, who plays Ruby, Jenna Malone. She had a baby, by the way. And I'd written that she was just going to kiss the corpse. So we were setting it up, and I'd hired an X-rated actress to lie on the floor or on the thingy. And so I'm sitting behind camera, got music, you know, like we did on Drive going on. Whenever you're ready, Jenna, and you just kiss the corpse, and it was kind of like the second scene I'd done with Jenna, so I didn't really know her very well. And she bends over and she kisses the corpse, and I suddenly get this instinct. And I go, can you spit in her mouth? And she does. And I go, can you touch her? She does. And can I get more saliva on her nipples as you move up to her chin? No, do that again, and then make sure the saliva, you know, over her mouth again. And
yeah, what's the point of the story? So just we saw it. So is there an insight here to this, or are you just gonna take us through every goddamn?
Anyway, that was a great scene, and we found the character, and it was so good that I decided to make the movie about Jenna and Elle. So it means the second half had to change, and that changed the film radically because it became the essence.
So interesting, because in a film, and especially with your level of control and auteurship, it could be anything, right? I mean, you could have written a scene where Elle finds a dog that's a great singer. You could have written a scene where one of the characters discovers that if you pour milk on a rock, it tastes like cake. You know, you could do anything you want, and yet with that kind of control, you went, no, necrophilia. That's what I'm gonna do. I can do anything, I'm gonna do necrophilia. Why?
Well, I think that it had to do with that 16-year-old girl.
You're blaming her for a lot of things, honestly.
I just thought it was kind of exciting. I mean, not physically, but more like there was just something really interesting about sex and death. It goes to the opening scene, which is all about death and beauty.
Nice. This leads me in nicely to a question that you wrote for me. If you don't mind if I read it. It's Nick wants me to say this. I have to say you were never born beautiful. So what was it like making a movie about beauty? And then in parentheses it says, I will agree with you and talk about how lucky I am to have beautiful girls around me in terms of my family. And then you can say that I'm very lucky because I have the most beautiful, extravagant, intelligent, gifted, sophisticated, inspired wife who's incredibly beautiful, and my children are pure poetry. Would you like to elaborate on that?
I think that really covers it.
No, but why beauty? Why was this a theme that you wanted to explore in the film?
Because beauty is one of the most complex themes. It's something that everyone has an opinion about. At one level it's very shallow, on another level it's extremely complex. And I have daughters that are starting to be teenagers, and I was never born beautiful. I always wanted to be beautiful.
Mom, would you just stop? Honestly. It's so embarrassing.
So you know, beauty was a great theme to make horror about.
Right. How did you feel about that theme and this sort of exploring this world?
Well, Nick asked me, like one of the first times we were talking, and he asked me, "Do you think you're beautiful?" Which is a very uncomfortable question, and you're not, like, people teach you, you're not supposed to answer that, you know, it's very taboo, and so I just kind of laughed, but then we realized that's kind of, well, why is it so taboo when people also say, you know, narcissism is, people think is a very negative thing, but then the other side to it is people say you should love yourself and you should say you're beautiful and embrace. So it's kind of that in between. Why do people say one thing, but then there's that other side as well? And also, I mean, I'm a teenager, and this kind of growing up into the future that I'm living in with Instagram and Twitter and all those things, and looking at those photos that are very dead in a way. That's kind of the death and beauty, because those images aren't alive. So my friends and me were looking at these photos that are fake, and photos, I mean, there's apps that you can use to make yourself look skinny and, you know, your skin look perfect. And so we're looking at those images, and so when we see a real person, we think that's not perfect, but that's real. The other's just this image that we're staring at. So it's kind of scary to think about the future going way more in that direction, and what could happen. Maybe someone, you know, would eat you to get it.
What is... I want to ask did anyone tweet me? Okay, so I'm gonna look, and while I'm looking for a good, because I only have 2 minutes, while I'm looking for a good Twitter question, will you, Nick and Elle, talk about the title and what is that? Nick, did this start with the title, and then how did this begin? Did it start with the title? Because I know that was the case with Only God Forgives.
I really want to say how much I love you.
You really want to say what?
I love you.
Oh, let's go to the Twitter then.
The title was...
Surely you've answered this question before.
At first came the beginning scene. That's the first idea I had of death and beauty. And then when I had to give, because there was a lot of fake scripts, because everyone kept on putting the script on the internet. So I kept on saying, but there is no script, because I wanted to avoid any kind of exposure. So I came up with a few different titles, but the one for the movie was just a wordplay. I thought neon, which is really sexy and frightening. Demon, which is pretty cool.